Good morning. Welcome to the Planning Economic Development Subcommittee meeting. Today is January 8, 2019, and I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. I am anticipating that we will have an exciting new year and full of adventures. So, number one item, first I'm calling the meeting to order, and I have no cards for a call to the public, so I'm just going to the first item, which are minutes on November 6, 2018.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion, a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I have items 2 through 7 on consent, and I was told there was an item that needed to be pulled. Is it out of?
Item 3.
Item 3. We'd like to pull item 3 out. Can we vote from items 2 and 4 through 7?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We now have item 3, Property Management Services RFP for Affordable Housing Portfolio.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. The City of Phoenix Housing Department owns 18 affordable housing properties in the City of Phoenix. They include about 1,300 units, rental units, and we house, in these properties, we house households at 80% or below area median income at rental rates that are well below market rate. We are currently contracted with Dunlap and McGee Property Management Company to manage all 18 properties, and that contract is coming up in October of 2019, so we are needing to reissue an RFP or request for proposals for property management now so that we can have the proposal process finished and complete well in time for any transition necessary to start up again in October of 2019. As we did in the past, we will sort these 18 properties into 3 or 4 groups to encourage more competition from local property managers, just to make sure that everyone has a chance to work for us and manage our properties.
Thank you. I believe Councilwoman Mendoza has some questions.
Do you have a presentation or no, you don't, right? Can we go to the page 18 to the criteria? I'd like to see if we can move some points around where the price proposal, I'd like to see that increase to $350. And keeping the method of approach at $300, but adding the proposer's approach and methodology for providing service, which would also include the experience providing social services and proposed social services plan. I feel that the method of approach and the resident services and support are the same thing. So, and then keeping experience qualifications at 250 points.
So could you please go through each bullet to explain what each bullet signifies? And I'm curious as to how it ended up rating the way it did, how it ended up the way it is. But the other question is method of approach and residents of service and support. What do those mean?
So, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, we have 2, 3, 4, 5 sections that are scored in this RFP. The first one is experience and qualifications. Pretty self-explanatory, but evidence of the proposer's ability to manage affordable housing properties and any experience managing affordable housing properties in the City of Phoenix. The method of approach is basically the proposer's approach to managing each of these properties, how many staff they're going to assign, the hours that they're going to work, and how they're going to charge us for their management fees and their direct costs. A price proposal is the competitive management fee and staffing expenses, so that's pretty straightforward. The resident services and support is what we're looking for is any extras that the community property manager can bring in for the residents. So again, these are low-income residents, households under 80% of area median income. So we're looking for community connections. Some of these property managers have been in the valley for a long time. They have relationships with nonprofits and things like that that come in and do education on domestic violence, elder abuse. They do financial consulting. They do nutrition and health programs. So we're just looking for someone who has that kind of inclination, experience, and connections that can help our residents, in addition to just managing the property. And last are references. 100 points. The proposer has to provide references from firms or organizations that receive similar services to them.
So my question to you is the method of approach. If we add experience of social services, isn't that what number resident services and support is? Or what are we trying to do? Are we going to collapse it, or what is it that is trying? What are you trying to meet?
So, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, it appeared to me that Councilwoman Mendoza was recommending that we combine resident services and support in the method of approach, and we can do that.
Okay, that's what I'm curious. Now, when you do that, the points. So, are we going to then relook at the points?
Yes.
Okay. So then,
So the experience qualification would stay the same, 250.
right.
The method of approach would stay the same, 300. Then the price proposal would be at 350. And the references at 100. I believe that, is
Is that up? Hold on. I haven't added. So 300, 360. I see what you did. You added the 150. Okay.
Getting rid of resident services.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
just
combining it, we're collapsing it.
I have another question now that it's been brought up. I'm just curious as to why we then separated it. What was the purpose of it separated?
So, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, we had originally separated them. I couldn't tell you. I think we've done this several years in a row, and I'm not sure how it originally came forward, but this is how we've consistently done it. I think that we do value a property manager who cares about our residents and has community connections and makes sure that our residents get, support and classes and things like that. So we wanted to make sure that that was a part of the plan.
Okay. My whole, guess, core piece on affordable housing is that it's a quality experience, and that whoever's serving our constituents or our customers, that it is a excellent service that they receive, and that they also receive quality in how customer service and in their social programming. And so I don't know how you capture that within here. So I don't know.
So yes, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, we will definitely capture that in our evaluation of these different sections. I think we can include that in method of approach. It should also come up in the references, as well as experience and qualifications of doing the same thing. We will make sure that that is, customer service is important to us as well. I mean, we value that for all of our properties, and especially our affordable properties, because those are the most vulnerable residents, and they need that kind of service. So we will definitely make it a priority.
Right, and I feel like I'm back to the, I can't remember the piece that we worked on. We worked on it last year, and legislation, but I feel like we're back to that space where we're asking for quality of services, and not just a checkbox where, okay, I have this social program, and so I check this box, and truly not receiving the quality of care or services that are deserved. And so I want to be able to figure that out. I figured you'll probably, if you could add that in, it's somewhere in this piece, that would be great.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, we'll definitely add that into the method of approach, evaluation, as well as experience and qualifications and reputation.
Okay. Is there a motion? Do we need a motion? Yeah.
Because we're changing.
Motion to approve property management services request for proposals for affordable housing portfolio.
With the revised.
With the revised.
Criteria point.
And
I will
scoring.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Wanna add the language of
Oh,
quality?
I'm just gonna figure.
Okay.
I trust that they'll add it. Because if not, we'll be on big council. We'll be at council. Item 8 is for information only. Does anybody need that?
No.
Okay, item 9 is the downtown code map text amendment. Someone here to speak about that, or? I do have cards, so do we want to?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, we did receive a letter from an applicant requesting a 1-month continuance to your February 5th meeting. This was done at the request of Council District 7 because Councilman Nowakowski is asking to put together a meeting with the neighbors and the applicant to sit down and have some discussions about this case before it moves forward.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to continue this for another month until our February meeting, so that we
Okay.
can gather with the community and the developer to talk about some issues that the community is having on this project.
Perfect. Is there a second? Oh, is there a second?
Second?
There's a second. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Heather, I think you were probably going to ask for a continuance, so I just took the liberty to keep moving it. Okay, Joan Pelchner, did you want to speak? Or, okay. So everything is, it would be on the continuance. So everything is going to be continued. Thank you. Item 9 is done. And we are on item 10, follow-up on the downtown development RFP update.
Good morning, Madam Chair. We actually tricked you just a little bit and moved the duo at Fillmore in between, so we'll make just a little trick there. Duo's fine.
Okay, we will talk about I'm going to move things out of order. We will talk about item 11, dual on Fillmore, and then we'll go back to item 10. Chris is doing both shows, so that's what's happening. I think it has to do with where the PowerPoint is set up right now.
We're
So-
fine either way. We're economic developers. We drop back and punt. It's okay.
All right, here we go.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. We are here today to talk to you about a new high-density residential mixed-use project for downtown Phoenix, known as the Duo at Fillmore. This property is located at the northeast corner of Fillmore and 3rd Avenue. This did come in through the downtown RFP, which we're going to talk to you about next. With me today is Eric Johnson, Deputy Director of Community and Economic Development, and Zandon Keating, Program Manager. And I'm going to turn it over to Zandon to walk you through the terms of a potential project.
Thank you, Chris. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, as Chris mentioned, this is a vacant, or not a vacant lot, a lot downtown, currently developed as a parking lot leased by Arizona State University. We have a business proposal before us today for a development. The development team, we have a local development team, Aspirant Development, local architecture firm, and then a contractor, general contractor who's well-versed in downtown development here in Phoenix, currently doing the Link as well as some other buildings in downtown Phoenix at the moment. So this particular development proposal is for a 17-story multifamily residential tower. Would have 275 structured parking spaces. The developer is committed to maintaining 34 of those open to the public. There would be a small commercial component as well. On the ground floor, likely a retail tenant of some sort. And then they've also agreed to maintaining a minimum of 8% workforce housing units, and those would be between, defined as between 80 and 120% AMI. And they've, what the project would be a G-plat with the 8-year abatement and a ground lease of the property by the developer.
Chairwoman, members of the council, if I could provide, you want to flip back to the screen? Just a little bit of enlightenment on that particular item. The items we've seen come forward most recently have shown 10% on their workforce housing. On this one, staff is recommending 8%, and the reason being, in this particular area, we are in desperate need of public parking. And the applicant was willing to do 34 in perpetuity public parking places, not just a term of the GIPLA, but 34 in perpetuity public parking places. So we thought that was a good trade-off in this area where we have Chibo and Vig and other things that are really struggling for their parking.
Okay, got it. Because we were all having meltdowns right now and saying, we just went through this. Okay.
Chairwoman, I saw the looks on your faces, which is why I jumped in.
Okay, so this is the property, because in my mind I was trying to figure it out. It's the property right across from Chivo. Or,
Going back to this slide, it's 2 blocks east of Chibo. So sort of in between Chibo and Arizona State University,
Yeah.
actually. O'Neill Printing is just to the south of this. Salvation Army is immediately to the west.
I know where it's at. Okay, that's where I needed to,
There's very limited public parking in
right,
this
it
particular area.
is very limited, I know that, especially late at night. Go ahead. Or lunch hour, yes. That's a better one, lunch hour.
Most
All right.
importantly.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Talk about some of the benefits that come along with this project. Since it is a G-Plat, we of course need to see some benefits coming back. Large investment in downtown, almost just below $60 million. There would be construction sales tax as well as rental sales tax that would go along with that, going into the general fund. This is high-rise construction in downtown, which is something that the city's looking for. Workforce housing, of course, is included. The public parking is a commitment by the developer, and then there are, of course, a number of jobs associated with this particular project, both permanent and temporary. With that, we are asking for a recommendation to move forward to City Council to enter into contracts with this developer.
So you're talking about a G-Plat? So as a reminder, how do we work with the school districts on G-Plats?
Absolutely, Chairwoman, members of the subcommittee. Even though, as you'll remember from your last year of the GIPLET conversation, the school district will no longer provide a letter of concurrence to the city. However, the development community, we still require them to go meet with the school district and come to a conclusion that's mutually beneficial for the school district and for the entity. And we've provided both the school district and the developer all of the information they need for those negotiations.
So my question is, it's been provided, has it happened?
Yes, they have had their meeting with the school district.
And what was the benefit?
I will, if you don't mind, I'll bring the applicant up so you can hear it directly from them. We try to stay out of the negotiations.
No, I know, but I mean, at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
PHX is the one who's suffering at this moment. Since I represent part of that, there was the superintendent and former board members that were saying, we signed these letters, however, we have not seen anything, and we are losing students, and we are losing revenue. So that's my question.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Nick Wood, Snell and Wilmer, 1 Arizona Center, and I represent the developer who's also here. We did meet with both the elementary school district, Phoenix Elementary, as well as the high school district. Chris and her team was nice enough to give us what that delta is, the difference between what they will get from the equalization statute payments and basically that gap. We have sent letters to them, and we're happy. I think you have those. If you don't, we'll be happy to provide them. But we sent letters to each one committing to fill that gap during the 8-year abatement period. And we also have agreed to give especially the elementary school district, advance notice of when marketing will begin, so that their teachers will have kind of a first option to look at the workforce housing units. And they were pretty excited about that, actually.
So Nick, when you say fill that gap, what does that mean?
Well, and again, Chris
How do you
can.
fill it? I
Yeah.
guess is what I'm trying
We
to
will
figure out.
write a check annually to
Okay.
each one of the school districts.
Okay.
Basically to pay for that differential
Got it.
between what equalization. So they will not lose a penny
Okay.
of what they would otherwise receive.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Or working it out, Nick. Right, do we have a motion? Councilman Nowakowski, do you have any questions?
No questions at all. I just want to thank our staff for working really hard. I know one of the problems we have in that area is parking, and we were shooting for 10% workforce housing, but then we compromised with 34 parking slots. And I want to thank our staff for working really close with the developer and the advocates for this project to make that happen. I know that the teachers are really excited about more workforce housing in that area so they can actually teach and live in the same areas. So I want to thank you all for your hard work, and it looks like a great project for District 7. So I'd like to make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
Before we go, we want to know why parking's so expensive. Or at least a space.
Absolutely, Chairwoman. When you look at high-rise development, it's not traditional construction where you would spend $5,000 pouring a surface parking lot and parking on top of that. When you're dealing in high-rise development, if you're subterranean, it's $50,000 a stall to build. If it's above grade, it's $25,000 a stall. So over the time, they have to be able to recoup their money on the construction costs of that parking. It's incredibly expensive, which is one of the significant reasons it puts us to a significant disadvantage to suburban development that can surface park. So when you're building 300 units on 18 acres in suburbia, you throw down a sea of asphalt and some trees and everybody's happy. Here you're paying anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 a stall to get them constructed in an urban environment.
Got it. All right, all those in favor, we voted, yes, no.
Second.
Second, we need to make all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item is item 10, follow-up on downtown development RFP.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, as we just saw with the duo on Fillmore, that project did come in through the Downtown Development RFP. And this council did create the Downtown Development RFP in 2011, and you really did it to level the playing field so that anyone who had private property that needed to be able to have some type of city assistance, whether it's through public infrastructure, whether it's water lines, a sidewalk, a gyplet to make the project work so the parking works, something like that came in through a very leveled playing field. As time has gone on, we've modified it a few times. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Eric Johnson to walk you through as it exists today and a couple of changes we might suggest.
Thank you very much, Chris. Good morning, Chair and Subcommittee. As we discussed in the last meeting, as Chris mentioned, we gave you the overview of the RFP itself, but the Subcommittee directed us to look at 4 additional items to come back with some feedback and some proposed improvements. Obviously, the first topic is the priority of workforce housing. As the Subcommittee is directed and the community is looking for, that's a very large priority for the community. So as a part of trying to address that concern, we are proposing to add in as a part of the requirement for any proposals that come in with residential product, that those proposals include 10% of the units and a mix of those units as a part of workforce housing. And so we'll put that in as a part of one of the basic requirements as our desired elements within the RFPs. The second item that we were looking at was the evaluation criteria. The RFP itself has 4 criteria that we look at: the concept to activate the site, the qualifications, experience, and financial capacity of our developers, their business plan, and then the level of return and benefit to the city. At the last meeting, we were directed to look at reevaluating the points that were assigned to those different values. Staff's recommendation is to keep the concept to activate the site the same at 300 points, but increase the level of return and benefit to the city from 200 to 275, reflecting the importance of having the workforce housing as a part of that proposal and raising that importance within our evaluation criteria for our community panel. Then we adjusted the proposer qualification capacity down from 250 to 225, and the proposer business plan from 250 down to 200. So we were trying to raise that importance of the benefit that we were asking for the developers to propose as a part of their proposal process. The next request was to look at ways to speed up our process. This is one item where staff is still working with our law department to evaluate all the intricacies of our redevelopment statutes and state law that apply to our downtown redevelopment areas. But we are working on a process, and we're working out a few last bit of items on this item, but we will be looking to come back to subcommittee with a recommended plan to revamp this RFP process and maybe change the format of the process to try to find a way to speed this overall process up, and we look to come back to you in an upcoming meeting with that recommendation. The third item was a direction to look to add workforce housing into RFPs in the future with our city-owned properties, and absolutely that is an easy item for us to come back and on our future properties, city-owned properties, when we come back on city-owned properties, that we'll definitely include that as a requirement for projects where we're looking for a residential component, that we include the workforce housing component into that project. With that, summarizes the 4 items that we were asked to take a look at and provide some follow-up information on. Obviously, the first 2 are the recommendations to make changes to the RFP at this time, which was adding in the workforce housing component of the 10% and adjusting the evaluation criteria. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I will move. I will move a motion.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Madam Chair, just one question.
Uh-huh.
Anything in the pipeline city-owned property, are we going to include the workforce housing on that, or it's something from today on?
Chairwoman, Councilman Nowakowski, we, in our process right now, we don't have any open RFPs at this time, but in the pipeline of what we brought to you during earlier this year of what we would be taking out for RFP this year, we would definitely include it in those.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 12, sorry. Update on the Phoenix Central Business District and Downtown Redevelopment Area.
We'll just keep going. We are here, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee today, to provide you an update on both the Phoenix Central Business District and the Downtown Redevelopment Area. Just as a point of clarification, there are more than 13 redevelopment areas across the city of Phoenix, and to become a redevelopment area, it does need to meet federal statutes of blighted or slum conditions. It's a very prescriptive description that it needs to meet. We have these redevelopment areas in downtown, in South Phoenix, and Metro Center, and quite a number of other areas. We're specifically today focusing on downtown, and the reason we're focusing on downtown were some legislative changes in the most recent GIPLET statutes that took place during this last legislative session, which the governor signed into law, which became effective August 1st. And those modifications in the GIPLET language said that any redevelopment areas that are located in a central business district, and we have one central business district that's here in downtown, you'll see a map in just a moment, is required to update, to be renewed every 10 years. And anyone that hasn't been renewed or created in 10 years has 2 years from the date that the governor signed and became effective to renew or modify your redevelopment area. So from August 1st, we have 18, we have 2 years to redefine or modify our redevelopment area in downtown. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric Johnson to walk you through what that means to us.
Thank you very much, Chris. As Chris mentioned, the story kind of starts with an interplay between the central business district and the downtown redevelopment areas. Time-wise, though, the first thing that was established, well, actually, let me restart, sorry. There was originally a central business district in 1961 that encompassed just the 20 blocks in the downtown business core, but that was not directly related to a redevelopment area. The city's first major policy effort as part of the downtown redevelopment was in 1979 when we established the downtown redevelopment area, which you see here in the red line is generally described as between 7th Street and 7th Avenue and McDowell down to Lincoln Street. That redevelopment area, as Chris mentioned, was analyzed, and then the council established the redevelopment area and a redevelopment plan to focus on efforts within that area. Following the downtown redevelopment area plan, there was a government mall redevelopment plan that generally is described as the area between 19th Avenue and 7th Avenue, and then Fillmore down to the railroad tracks is that general area, obviously encompassing our Capitol Mall area. That was established in 1985, and they also established a redevelopment plan to help guide the efforts that were happening within that area. Subsequent to that 1985 action, the City Council approved a central business district, which you see shaded in there, that basically includes both the downtown redevelopment area and the government mall redevelopment area. And the purpose of that central business district was to obviously focus on redevelopment efforts within the area with incentives and to try to encourage new construction and new growth within that area. That central business district has been, oh, yeah, there we go. That central business district has been successful in helping to allow the city to go after and attract the kind of redevelopment that both the downtown redevelopment area plan and the government mall redevelopment plan were looking for us to achieve. So very early on in the late 80s, the Arizona Center was one of the first projects to come in underneath both the process of the central business district and the redevelopment area. It was an assemblage of properties. It was new growth. It was office, retail, entertainment with the movie theaters, a combination of those efforts, and most recently the subcommittee has heard about the apartment complex or the apartment tower that's coming in, as well as the hotel tower that's being proposed on the site. The redevelopment area has also helped facilitate the attraction of a grocery store in here, and we're seeing that with the construction of the Fry's on Block 23. As well as the long-term goal of our council and our community is to try to attract a lot of high-density residential. And so we've seen over 2,000 units coming into downtown over the last 10 years, and we're very happy to see many more projects coming in at that time as well. As Chris mentioned, the changes at the state law, and this was specifically actually regarding GPLET statutes, were modified with regard to the redevelopment area, requires us to come in and reevaluate the RDAs within, the redevelopment areas within each of the central business districts. And so we are focusing on acquiring a consultant to help our planning and development department staff and CED to study those areas. We need to do both the downtown redevelopment area and the government mall as part of that analysis. Once we complete doing the assessment of the RDA area, we will establish slum and blight conditions, evaluate which properties have been improved, and then look to bring to council the ability to see where those boundaries have changed. The redevelopment area lines will change, but our central business district is something that we don't look to modify at this time, but just to certify basically the redevelopment area. As part of that process, public outreach will be a very key component. We want to make sure we meet with all the different neighborhood community groups, as well as business organizations and property owners within that area. And then once those outreach efforts and the study is complete, we will come back to council and look for council approval of the recertification of those two redevelopment areas.
And Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, this is a planning exercise. This is a planning effort. So we will be working closely with Alan Stevenson and his team and Spencer in our neighborhood services department on the slum and blight side. So this will be a cross-departmental project and effort that we bring forward with Alan Stevenson in the lead.
I've gone through this exercise, and you're right, it has to be led by the planning department. So thank you for saying that.
What I'm really curious about, well, I just had an aha moment at this moment. The Central Business District, that explains to me why there's a debate over, well, not a debate. There's a dialogue or discussion that is being opened right now about moving what street the light rail should go on. And it explains to me now, I didn't understand until now I saw the central business district, because that now explains who the key people are in playing and wanting to shift where the light rail is going to go. Because there's a discussion if it goes on Washington or Jefferson. So I'm just saying, because I just had the aha moment as to why the dialogue is now has been opened. So that's why I'm just like, okay, wait a minute, this makes sense because of all the, we all sit in different committees, so. But thank you. Then those are the next steps. I don't think I have, this is just for discussion, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Item 13. It's multifamily housing update.
You have to put up with me one more time, but we'll change the players. I'd like to welcome to us the gentleman who heads our research team on economic development, Joseph McEwen, and our director of our housing department, Cindy Stotler. As you'll remember, in 2016, we provided an update to this subcommittee on the types of housing in the central city and the jobs in the central city. We're here today to provide an update on the information. It's been 2 years, and kind of show you where our efforts have led us towards and what's happening in the central city. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joseph McEwen to walk us through his research.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Before getting into the specifics on the multifamily housing properties themselves, we wanted to give a little context to who lives and who works within the broader central city. For this analysis, central city was defined as Camelback to the north, Buckeye to the south, 7th Ave to the west, and 16th Street to the east. When we look at the total population that lives within this central city, we can go back to 1970. That had a peak of around 55,000 people. With the development of the street network, our freeway system, we saw a decline in the population of the central city to a low of approximately 46,000 in 1990. Since then, we've come back with a population of around 58,000 in 2018 as we've looked to focus on redevelopment of the core of our city. When we look at those who are working within the central city, we see approximately 173,000 employees. They make an average annual salary of around $67,000. However, only 4% of those employees actually live within the central city. And in fact, 49.4% of those employees don't even live in the city of Phoenix.
Madam Chair, if I could interject for just a moment. If you'll remember from the 2016 presentation, only 3% of our people that worked in the central city lived in the central city. So in just 2 years, we've moved it by a full % of the people that work in the central city and live in the central city. Subsequently, we were just over 50% of the people in the central city that lived outside of Phoenix, that took their money home and went outside of Phoenix to spend their money. And we're moving in the right direction. You'll see now it is nearing 49%. So we're moving in the right direction to pulling our own employees back into Phoenix.
Moving now into the multifamily housing options themselves, we wanted to go through what our focus areas were. We looked at a 1, 3, and 5 mile radius from Central and Van Buren. The 1 mile radius represents the immediate downtown area, while a 5 mile radius represents a reasonable 15-minute commute. We will see 3 types of housing properties: market, workforce, and affordable. The market properties are your Class A, Class B, newer, more expensive. The workforce is sometimes referred to as Class C, and affordable is going to be your public and subsidized housing. We pulled data for this analysis from Apartment Insights through our partners at DPI. This data is for properties with 50 or more units. To give you an idea of what the average rents look like within this 5 mile radius, we looked at what the average monthly 2-bedroom rental cost would be. For market properties, that ranges $1,300 to almost $1,900 a month. You see a range there because, again, market represents Class A and Class B. For the workforce properties within the 5-mile radius, that average is at $835 a month. And for the affordable properties, that's as low as $725 a month. When looking at the total units within each mile radius, this graph will show you for each property type what that looks like. As you can see, for 1, 3, and 5-mile radius, the majority of the units are market properties. But what's even more significant is the increase in workforce and affordable housing units as you go from a 1, 3 to even a 5-mile radius. To better see where these properties are, we'll go back to the analysis areas. In the light green, you see the market properties. There are 75 here. In the blue, the affordable at 73. And then in purple are the workforce properties. There are 103 of those, with significant clusters in the northeast and northwest of downtown. To look at the workforce properties themselves within the 5-mile radius, this chart will show you what the total number of units are and the average rents for each unit type. As you can see, within a 5-mile radius, the majority of workforce units are 1 to 2 bedroom, followed by studio. Next, I'd like to hand it over to Cindy Stotler, our Director of Housing Department, to walk you through what some of the opportunities might be to bring more workforce housing into downtown.
Thank you, Joseph. Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, so the Housing Department's mission is to increase the number of affordable housing units in the city of Phoenix. We are, at this point, with a HUD Choice Neighborhoods grant, we are redeveloping the Edison Eastlake community directly east of downtown at 16th Street and Van Buren in that vicinity, tearing down 577 units of obsolete public housing and building back over 1,100 units of mixed income affordable housing, as well as 40 home ownership units. So that should assist with some of the workforce housing and affordable housing needs in and near downtown. In addition to that, under your direction, Madam Chair, we are working with the Community and Economic Development Department on an RFP for a private development demonstration project at in 3 acres that we own at Central and Columbus, just south of Indian School, looking for affordable and market rate, some kind of demonstration program there. And in addition to that, we are looking at 2 downtown properties that we own within the 1-mile radius of the central core that Joseph was talking about, exploring options on 2 very underutilized properties that currently, with very small number of units. On Deck Park Vista's 56 units, and it's in Roosevelt Row on 2 acres. Ambassador West is about 100 units near 5th Avenue and Van Buren. Both properties have downtown code zoning and could possibly have 400 units or more on each property. So they're very underutilized, so we have some opportunities there. So I look forward to working with Councilwoman Mendoza and Councilman Nowakowski on redevelopment opportunities there to increase the number of affordable and workforce housing units. And with that, I'll open for questions.
Cindy, for the Deck Park Vista and the Ambassador, what are you thinking? Or what are the thoughts? Because those have been the hottest properties that I have heard about, well, plus the Columbus and Central, but hottest properties of people wanting to get their hands on those properties and wanting us to either swap land or sell it. And so what are the thoughts?
So, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, my thought as the housing director is to maintain ownership of those properties to ensure, affordability in perpetuity. And my other thought is to find ways to redevelop those properties and maximize the use of those properties because they are in ideal areas for more affordable and workforce.
Okay. I was just curious. Because I know at one point we were talking a private partner, I don't know what we were talking about. But, I mean, that was the conversation and then it stalled. And it had to do with, will then, 40 years from now, will we, the city, still have then affordability after 40 years? And so that was kind of the dialogue.
Yes, Madam Chair, so to eliminate any risk of losing the affordability in the future, the city would like to maintain ownership. The Housing Department would like to maintain ownership however we redevelop. So we would look at deals that would maintain the city's ownership.
Okay. Councilwoman Mendoza, you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I have no cards for a call to the public. And any future items? Anybody have future items? If not, just let me know. I can always add them. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, ma'am.